Welcome in, everybody. It's the Coach Matthew Mitchell Show. I am your host, Coach Matthew Mitchell. Solo episode this week. We've had some great guests on here the last few weeks. I hope you have enjoyed some of these wonderful conversations that we've had. I hope you're learning a lot from the podcast, and we are excited for another episode. But first, are you struggling to get your team to reach their full potential? At Winning Tools, we give you the step-by-step framework to develop leaders, build winning habits, and create lasting success. So join us on this journey, because when you master the right tools, winning becomes inevitable, and we have the tools for you. The winning tools: honesty, hard work, discipline. Go to CoachMatthewMitchell.com to book your intro call today, and we will get you on the winning track. We address underperformance in your life and in your team, and we can solve underperformance for you and have you step into your full potential and bring your team together so they can reach their full potential. And guess what happens when that fact occurs in your life and in your business? You are winning. So check us out. Check out the Winning Tools, CoachMatthewMitchell.com, and we will get you ready to win. Also, on that subject, ready to win, how great leaders succeed through preparation. The USA Today best-selling book, authored by yours truly, Coach Matthew Mitchell, is available and is sold, and you can find it anywhere you buy your books online. Go grab your copy today. It is a fantastic book, if I should even say so myself. It's a great book about preparation and how that can powerfully position you to win. And there's a ton of free resources in that book that can jumpstart and get some rocket fuel into your preparation engine. And so check out Ready to Win, available anywhere you buy books online. So today, the subject today comes from an article I recently had published. And it came from an article I wrote when I was considering the journey of the Super Bowl champions this year. So this is the month of March, but it took me a little time from mid-February to think about what was going on. But I thought it was such a great topic. And so we're talking about, the name of the article is "A Principled Process Produces Ultimate Success: How Philadelphia Eagles coach Nick Sirianni prevailed to win the Super Bowl." So let's dive into this week's episodes. It was week 4 of the NFL season back here in 2024, just a few months ago. And the Eagles had started the season 2-2. There was blood in the water, and the Sharks were circling, and they were calling for Nick Sirianni's head. Now, Nick Sirianni is the head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles, who eventually prevailed as the Super Bowl champs this year. But you would think you were living on another planet if you rewind back to week 4 of the NFL season, 2024 NFL season, and the Eagles starting at 2-2. And you might think, hey, starting the season at 2-2 doesn't sound all that bad, but you have to put it in this perspective. The season before, the Eagles had started, had a fantastic start, 10-2, I think, to start the season, and then went on a bad slide at the end of the season, barely got into the playoffs, and then were defeated in the playoffs of the 2023 season. And so coming into the 2024 season, people were a little upset with how the previous season had ended. And if you are listening in Philadelphia, you already know this. But if you're not familiar with Philadelphia fans and Philadelphia fandom and what's going on in Philadelphia when they're cheering, a very passionate pro sports town with the Eagles probably at the absolute zenith of all the pro sports. But you have the Flyers in hockey, you have the Phillies in baseball that have a great tradition. You have the 76ers in basketball. And Philadelphia is famous for really, really passionate fans, but also they can be tough. They once booed Santa Claus at a game And so that tells you a little bit who in the world boos Santa Claus. Well, I'll tell you who does. The Philadelphia sports fans will boo Santa Claus if he's having a bad year. And I don't even know how that's possible for Santa to have a bad year, but evidently he was having a bad year because they booed him one time. And so a tough crowd. And so they were particularly upset with this sort of mediocre start that Nick Sirianni was leading. And some of the loudest people, besides the fans, were all the pundits on TV. And the loudest person that I remember watching, and it really, being a coach, being a professional coach in athletics for so long, it was always interesting to me to hear people commenting on a person's performance. One of the gifts I have, or talents I developed, or skills I learned, I'm not sure if it was talent or skill, but when I was coaching at Kentucky, which was a very public job, a lot of interest in it. We have no professional sports at that time in Kentucky, especially basketball or football. And so the University of Kentucky is really the most visible athletic program in the state, and people just love the Wildcats. And so it was a very public job, a lot of interest from the media, from the fans, a lot of responsibility placed on the person in that chair, which I was in that chair for 13 years, the head coach of University of Kentucky women's basketball. A lot of expectations from your leadership, from your president, from your athletic director. And we had high expectations of ourselves. But I always was able to block that out, and we're going to talk a little bit about how you can bring this into your life and your business. But I always found it interesting when people who were not professionals, not professional coaches, but they're professional media members, and it would just be like me commenting on how they write a column, and I don't really write professionally, but that's their job. Their job is to write and to comment on people's performance, and that's actually a good thing because it creates tremendous interest in the sport. But this one got going wrong. The commentary got very, very badly for Nick Sirianni, and it's almost as if it just starts to, build up like a tidal wave, and it finally just comes crashing in on the coast, and it's just mayhem everywhere. But Colin Cowherd from Fox Sports in the Herd show said this. He said it was time, week 4, 2-2. He said it was a time for an adult to coach the Eagles. And his basic premise was that Nick Sirianni had just been successful, in which Nick Sirianni had an incredible record, had taken the Eagles to the playoffs every year he had been the head coach, and had an incredible win-loss record up to that point. But Colin Cowherd and many more people, not just him, but he, to me, was the loudest. And he say an adult needed to coach him, and that he chalked it up to that he had just some great coordinators. So in football, for you people that don't follow the sport but listen to our podcast, football has a head coach that runs the entire organization, and then there's offense and defense in football. So there's an offensive coordinator or the head coach of the offense. Then there's a defensive coordinator, and these are the top 2 assistants, and they basically run both sides, either side of the ball, and they've got assistants underneath them. So the offensive coordinator would have a quarterback coach, a running back coach, an offensive line coach, a wide receivers coach. The defensive coordinator would have a defensive line coach, linebackers coach, defensive ends, secondary, safeties coach. Those are some of the positions on those respective units. And so Colin Cowherd was saying that Nick Sirianni really was in over his skis, didn't know what he was doing, and had only been successful because he had great coordinators. And so it was just going incredibly bad for Nick Sirianni. Now, what people really did not examine all that closely is, early in the season, especially in the NFL, where they've started making such huge money, they really don't have the preseason. They used to get all the kinks worked out in the preseason, and they really don't play that much anymore in the preseason. And so you'll see teams start a little bit slow, and also the Eagles had some injury problems, but none of this was being factored in. It was just Nick Sirianni's terrible, and he needs to go. So the article that I wrote is about what happens when you in your business encounter an extremely challenging time. And what I want to do for you today is I want to share with you some tactical tools that I used and learned when I was facing great challenge in this very public job. And so you may not have a public job, but I can assure you your job is important. I know that you want to succeed, and I know you want to perform well, or you wouldn't be listening to this podcast, because that's what this is all about, is trying to help you move forward. And so while your job may not be public, it is important. And so let's talk about how we can respond, give you some tools to respond in tremendous adversity. So the first thing really speaks to getting focused. And what happens for a professional coach in a really high visibility job, and one of the things that they need to do is they need to block out the noise. All right. And so in business, this could also be described as just anything that's distracting you, but let's call it noise. We're going to block out the noise. And so what is the noise? So the noise is anything that's focused on the positive or negative results of whatever challenge you're facing. And so the noise is just real obvious observations that pertain to results that you are presently getting. It rarely has any knowledge of or interest in the complexities of your particular leadership challenge. And it's not really interested in the long-term plan or your process or what your vision down the road is, and it's just not interested in anything that's really engaged, that you're engaged in, that's going to achieve sustained or ultimate success. It is a snapshot of the current situation. And so you'll see this all the time in athletics. People will overreact to a win, and they will wildly overreact to a loss. And so where can these distractions come from? Where is the noise generated? So there's three ways that the noise gets generated. It comes from pundits, it comes from competitors, and it comes from your inner critic. So let's break these three things down for you, and I want you to figure out where these people are in your life and how they might be leading you down a road of distraction. And they're your version of the noise, just like they were Nick Sirianni's version of the noise. And what I'm going to tell you Nick Sirianni did, Nick Sirianni blocked out the noise. But who creates the noise? So first, pundits. And these are people in your life that give opinions in an authoritative manner. These opinion givers are never the decision makers. They're just giving opinions. They're not giving you solutions. So it doesn't matter much to these people whether they are right or wrong, because no consequences are attached to the outcome of their opinions. And what's more, they always present their opinion as being right, and usually at great disservice to you, because they have no substantive knowledge of your situation. And so a pundit could be in your world. If you don't have a public-facing job, if you have a public-facing job, definitely the pundits are in the media. There's no doubt about it. When I was coaching at Kentucky, we had pundits. Right now, living in this town, there are pundits commenting on University of Kentucky athletics who in no shape or form have any substantive knowledge. They're just giving opinions. They don't know what that coach's plan is and what they're doing behind the scenes and what they're doing in practice and their meetings and all that. So the media can be a pundit. But in your world, if you are not in a public-facing job, a pundit could be a parent. How many times I want you to stop and think, has your parent had a strong opinion? Let me give you an example in my world. My dad, who I love my dad, I've talked about him many times on the podcast, John D. Mitchell Sr., was an incredible pundit when I coached basketball. Now, this was a man who had never played in one organized basketball game in his life, never played in one game of basketball. But over the course of my 15 years, and it didn't take him long, it didn't take him 15 years, he became an expert at commenting and giving an opinion on basketball. And so, for instance, if we missed a free throw at the end of the game, all right, I'd get a call and say, "Oh, man, that's a tough loss, Matthew. I'm so sorry you lost that game. I just hate it for you. Have you ever thought about practicing your free throws?" Just a thought that I had. Or if we got out-rebounded in a game, man, gosh, Matthew, bad loss. Sorry for you. Hate it. Know you're probably down. Let me ask you this. Have you worked on boxing out, blocking out, and done any rebounding drills? I'd suggest you start doing that. So it's an obvious observation. And so my dad was a pundit. He was a pundit. So it can be a parent, it can be a sibling, it can be a friend. But it's and oftentimes, and listen, to my dad's credit, there was no one who supported me more than dad and mom, and just had great support. And so he meant well. But if I let that get to me, if I let that creep into my consciousness, that could be distracting for me. Instead of just saying, listen, it's my dad. He cares about me. He loves me. He wants good things for me. He doesn't really particularly have any substantive knowledge that can inform me or move me forward. There's that danger of us letting that pundit, that parent, that sibling, that friend creep into our consciousness and get us distracted when we know what we're doing. We are the expert. We know what we need. If we're falling short somewhere, we can find somebody to help us fix it, or maybe we know how to fix it. Maybe we have the experience to do that. But a pundit cannot allow you to get distracted. You need to block that part of the noise out. All right, number 2, what's the second source of the noise? That now definitely can come. You don't have to have a public-facing job for this, but it can come from your competitors. So all of us, virtually all of us, I would say 100% of the folks who are listening to this podcast or watching it on YouTube. Are you enjoying it on YouTube? Have you watched it yet on YouTube? I mean, this is a fantastic studio. Look at this. We got my all-star producer, Megan Wycheck, is in the studio, and it's a high-level operation. So if you have not watched it yet on YouTube, please give a look to the video portion of the show. But I digress. What I'm saying to you is that 100% of the people engaged in this podcast have some competitors. You have competition in your business. You have competition in your world. These people generate noise, and these people have a very hard time of being objective observers of your situation. Most often, competitors are looking for and pointing out and giving more weight to the poor performances or the bad things or the negative things that they perceive from the outside. They like to highlight those to try to bring you down and try to boost them up. And so that can be very distracting. I can remember when I was a young and inexperienced coach, I thought that other people's opinions had something to do with my success, and it was noise. And it was distracting to me. And so I came on the scene as a very young coach, very aggressive, working hard, able to connect with people, did a good job recruiting. And so, but out in the recruiting community, my competition would sling all sorts of mud. And it didn't just happen to me. It didn't just happen to me. It was just sort of industry standard that and we called it negative recruiting. And so people would speak poorly of you because they were in competition for a player or a coach that you were trying to hire, whatever it may be, whatever the competition was, it was negative. All right. And so it could be very distracting to me. I would take it personally, and I'd get, upset about it. And I had to learn that I needed to block that out. It is great to be aware of your competition. It is great to be informed on what's happening in the industry. It's great to even look at a competitor and say, hey, listen, I really like what they're doing. And I think that that's something that I could maybe learn from, pick up on, mimic. No problem with that. But listening to noise from our competitors, you understand that they generally do not have your best interest at heart. They are trying to kill the competition. They're trying to defeat you in your business, in your industry. And so we have to block that part of the noise out. So we have pundits, we have competitors. Now, here is the one for me that is the most powerful and is the one that I still to this day have to work through and have to make sure that I don't let the noise from this source distract me. And that is my inner critic. And you may not be aware of your inner critic, but let me explain to you. Let me introduce you. If you're unaware, let me introduce you to your inner critic. Your inner critic is that voice in your head that has limiting beliefs and gives and vocalizes that. So it's the thoughts in my head that limit my progress, because it's either saying I don't have enough talent, it's saying that I don't have enough competency, it's saying that I'm too tired, I don't have the energy. And remember, we have said that before on the podcast, and I will say it again, and I'll say it 1,000 times if I have to get this through. If you're trying to do something meaningful, you need to get a yes on 3 levels. The first, do I have the talent? I don't have to have the most talent, but I have to be talented enough to get the job done. Number 2, do I have the skill and the competency to achieve this meaningful challenge or meaningful goal? And 3rd, do I have the energy? All right. And so the voice in our head that tells us we don't have enough talent, we don't have enough skill, we don't have enough energy, that voice is your inner critic. And here is where your inner critic's coming from. It's somewhere in our emotional makeup that is trying to protect us. The inner critic is actually approaching from a place of kindness. Although it's a negative and limiting voice, it's actually there to try to protect you, because the inner critic knows that you must step out and take some risks and step and try to rise to the occasion and try to meet the challenge. And that's going to take some risk on you. That's going to take some courage. And the inner critic does not want you to take that risk. It does not want you to find that courage, because it's trying to protect you. The inner critic's trying to protect you. And so we need to learn how to make peace with that inner critic. We need to say, thank you, inner critic, for trying to protect me. I know you're coming from a good place, but guess what, inner critic? We're not going to let you take the floor and play today. We're going to put you in the stands. In fact, inner critic, you're not even going to get a lower arena seat. You have to go up to the nosebleed section where we cannot hear you anymore. All right? I used to coach at the University of South Carolina. Fantastic basketball program. Don Staley has won, I think, now 3 national championships there. Tremendous basketball program. Not nice fans sitting right behind the bench. Not nice. And so I'm just telling you, I'm not disparaging the South Carolina fan base. Everybody's got to be a fan of somebody. I love the South Carolina fan base, but these people were nasty and mean to Coach Mitchell when I coached South Carolina. They're nasty. So they were right down behind the bench, and they would let me have it. And that's what they entered, because they did not want me to succeed. All right. And so while the inner critic's not as nasty as those South Carolina fans were, and you know who you are if you're listening, you know those mean things that you were saying to me when I coached there, and I forgive you. and I'm praying for you, and you had something, bad going wrong in your life to be so mean to me. But anyway, if I could have, I would have made them go up to the top row, because I have no idea what the people are saying in the top row. So that's where we got to send the inner critic. Okay, you can watch, you're here, you're part of me, you're with me, but you have no say in this. And so that is noise created, and that's the biggest, that's the most dangerous noise for me. You may have a greater challenge from pundits or competitors, but for me, mine's the inner critic. And so when we're trying to achieve meaningful, productive tasks and achievements in our life, we want long-term satisfaction because we have a principled process. We're going to have to take some risks. We're going to have to get out of our comfort zone, and we can't let the noise created by the inner critic stop us. All right? So it's so important to understand what's damaging about the noise, because the noise has little to do with what needs to happen to be successful in the long term. The noise is always short-term in nature. It rarely contributes anything of value in the pursuit of sustained success, and that's what we want you to have. We want you to have sustained success. And so listen, I'm talking about that inner critic and being negative, but also there's noise can be created from a positive place too. So you can have a big victory, and the noise can be distracting with people congratulating you on what you've done and congratulating on how great you are. And so that can be distracting as well, because we focus or are distracted by the noise, whether positive or negative, and that takes our eye off of what is truly important. And that's our fundamentals. That's our principles. That leads us to substance. Noise leads us to surface. And when you are using the winning tools, honesty, hard work, and discipline, that is going to help you make substantive change in your life. The first step that we need to do in creating a principled process is eliminating these distractions that are caused by the noise. So this is so important that we are going to have to do 2 episodes. That's just part 1 of creating a principled process. What's the name of this? What's the name of this episode? Principled process to long-term success. We're going to have to do a second episode. So, I mean, this stuff's too good, man. This is way too good to gloss over. So what we're going to do is we're going to get part 2 to you next week, and it's going to be fantastic. And we're going to keep marching toward helping you build this principled process, because Nick Sirianni got it done, and he's holding that trophy that every other NFL coach wishes was in his office right now. The Lombardi Trophy is in Nick Sirianni's office trophy case, and I'm going to tell you what I think he did to make that happen and to move from that 4th week in the NFL season, when blood was in the proverbial waters of the NFL, and the sharks were swimming, and the target was Nick Sirianni. So we're going to do that in episode 2. Now listen to this. Great teams and great leaders aren't born, they are built. And the winning tools provides the step-by-step process to turn potential into performance. And that's what we're going to address for you is underperformance. We can lift you out of that. We can solve that problem for you. And all you have to do is join us at CoachMatthewMitchell.com to get the tools that you need. We love the fact that you show up every week for us and listen to the podcast or view the podcast. We want you to subscribe. We want you to like. You can get the podcast on Spotify, on Apple, on all sorts of places. But we want you to subscribe to the podcast. If you get the podcast on Apple, leave us a review. That really helps us move forward. And we had a great week for you. Don't forget that Ready to Win My latest book, USA Today best-selling book, is available anywhere you get books online. Grab your copy. We've got a big announcement coming up soon concerning the book, and we'll be getting that to you. But we are so thankful for your participation. I am cheering for your success. I am here. I am ready to help you get ready to win. Go to CoachMatthewMitchell.com. Come back next week. We'll see you next time on the Coach Matthew Mitchell Show. Goodbye, everybody.